I'm Cashel, and I'm the head counselor this year at Sparrow.
And I'm Daniel. I'm going to be head of WOW.
We wanted to welcome you to this campfire technique, which we're going to try and do in a new way, which is virtually. So stick with us, and hopefully this will go well. First off, before we start, we just want to mention some safety things that we would usually talk to you here at camp about, and we want you to follow if you're going to do this at home. So first, here at Sparrow, when we're working with a fire, if we have long hair, we want to tie it up. And I have fairly long hair, about shoulder length, so I have it here tied up in a ponytail. Daniel's isn't quite long enough, so he doesn't have to tie his up right now. And the reason we tie our hair up is so that it doesn't fall over our shoulders and into the fire while we're working on it. Daniel, do you remember our other safety techniques that we do here at Sparrow?
Yeah, I think there's something to do with shoes, right?
Yeah, exactly. So when we're working with a fire, we want to have closed-toed shoes, and this is because a lot of flames can shoot up, or logs can possibly roll out of our fire pit while we're working on the fire, and we don't want those to land on our toes and burn them. Personally, I say Crocs are fine for fire building, but if you're going to be using an axe to cut wood, the best method, or the best shoes to have, is steel-toed shoes, and that's so the axe doesn't go through and hurt your toes. Another thing we do here at Sparrow is we don't like to have long flowy clothing on when we're working with fire, and that's because if our sleeves are hanging really low, they could also catch fire, and then we will be on fire and we'll have to do a whole stop, drop, and roll technique to get ourselves off and not lit. Last off, when we're starting our fire, we want to have a fire bucket around. This is just a bucket filled with sand or water, something that could suffocate the fire, and put it out when we're done with it. We do have our fire bucket just behind the camera here, but we're not actually going to be lighting some wood right now, so we don't need to have it filled at the moment.
How are we allowed to get in the fire?
That's a really great question, Daniel. So while we're here at Sparrow, we have the octagon, and we're sitting on our benches, and the fire pit is in the middle. As you can see, there is quite a bit of space, about 4 feet away from our fire pit, the benches. And if I want to get up and walk around the fire circle, I'm going to ask whoever's in charge. So if I want to get up and throw something in the fire, I'm going to say, Daniel, can I get up and go put this twig in the fire?
Sure thing, go ahead.
Thank you. And when I get up to go to the fire, what I'm going to do is I'm not going to stand and lean over the fire to work on it. I'm going to either come down to a squat position with 2 knees or 1 knee in the air. And the reason we do 2 knees or 1 knee is so that we can quickly jump up and out of the way if a fire comes and sprays at us. If you go down on 2 knees, then it's not like you don't have as much power and as much time to get up. It's going to take you longer, and you're more likely going to get hurt. So again, we're not going to enter the fire circle unless we ask. Otherwise, we're going to keep our bums on benches. So, in order to start our fire, we need some tools. We need 3 main things that a fire needs to stay alive. Daniel, do you know what those things are?
Well, I think the first thing is that a fire needs fuel to burn.
Yeah, a fire does need fuel. So that's a big thing that we're going to focus on today is fuel. And there's actually 3 categories of fuel as well. Do you know those names?
I do.
Yeah, what are they?
There's tinder, there's kindling, and there's firewood.
Perfect. So if you didn't catch it, it's tinder, kindling, firewood. Those are the big 3, and we'll go into specifications about them. So with tinder, I'm sure you've heard that word before. It's small stuff that can light quickly, and it's going to stay lit for about 3 seconds. So great, Daniel has some in his hands. We got some pine needles. These light very quickly. We also have some dry leaves in here, and those are great. But if you're picking them up off of the ground, make sure you're only picking up pine needles and not dirt or sand, because that's going to suffocate and put out our fire. Also, we have some handy dandy TP, or toilet paper. This is our 1-ply here at Sparrow Lake. It is the lightest stuff, and it will burn very quickly. So this is going to keep the fire lit for about 3 seconds, and that's not how long we want to keep our campfires going. We actually tend to have them for more than an hour. And so this isn't going to work for our main source. We need something else other than tinder. What else do we need, Daniel?
I think the next step is kindling.
Kindling is. So kindling is going to be bigger than your pinky. So tinder is very small. As you can see, the pine needles are definitely smaller than my pinky. But kindling can be anywhere from about this stick, these sticks that Daniel has gotten for me, all the way up to about a piece of wood this is pretty thin. And it's not very big, and it's smaller than my forearm. So that's kindling anywhere between bigger than your pinky and smaller than your forearm. So this stuff usually lights and stays lit for about 3 minutes. As you can see, we're kind of going up in time intervals as well as size. So tinder is our smallest stuff. It's staying lit for 3 seconds. Kindling is our medium-sized stuff. It's gonna stay lit for about 3 minutes. And in order to get your kindling set on fire, you need to have your tinder. Tinder is what lights first, and then tinder will light your kindling. Do you have any idea what your kindling is gonna light?
Is it gonna light bigger stuff?
It is gonna light bigger stuff, actually. Do you know the name of the bigger stuff?
Fuel wood.
Fuel wood or firewood. Now this stuff, just like the kindling, or like similar to the kindling I mean, it's gonna be bigger than your forearm. So again, tinder, smaller than your pinky, kindling between your pinky and your forearm, fuel wood, bigger than your forearm. And as you can see, this stuff isn't just gonna light right away because it's pretty thick. So again, you're gonna light your tinder, which is gonna light your kindling, which is gonna light your fuel wood, and that's what's gonna make your fire last. And if you wanna keep up with those time intervals, tinder is gonna light your fire for 3 seconds, kindling is gonna light your fire for 3 minutes, and depending on the fuel wood, you can have a fire for like past 3 hours. And that's an easy way to remember it, is our rule of threes. So those are our type of fuel, and as I mentioned, our fire needs 3 things to stay lit, and the first one was fuel. Do you know what the second one is, Daniel?
Fires need oxygen.
So fires do need oxygen for that chemical reaction to take place, but in order to get more oxygen into the fire, we're going to need to stoke it, which is why we have this tool here. It's pretty old, but it's very useful to get that oxygen into the middle of our fire. As you can see, it has this long metal bit here, and that's so it doesn't burn, and we can stick it straight into the middle of the fire, and we can slowly pump oxygen. Oxygen is going to be pulled in through this hole at the bottom and shot out through the mouth. So you're going to pump slowly, and the reason for that is because if you pump too quickly, you're going to do the reverse effect of suffocating it, but you're just going to provide too much oxygen and put it out. So when you're doing this, you have to go very slowly because this is a very powerful tool. But if you don't have this tool and you're using something like paper or cardboard, you're going to have to go very quickly to get that oxygen in that fire because you don't quite have the mechanics of this tool. Yeah, that's another great way to add oxygen to a fire, is to very slowly, and again, 2 knees up or 1 knee up, and you're gonna lean slowly and blow into that fire. And that's so you can provide your own oxygen and you look a bit like a dragon when you do it. So, in order to provide the most oxygen to our fire, the structure of the fire really matters. And what I mean by this is how we build our fire and how we provide that oxygen plainly through the structure. So at Sparrow, we have 3 types of fire structures that we like to use. Do you happen to know those names?
Yeah, so 3 that we usually use are teepees, log cabins, and lean-tos.
Yeah, exactly. So do you know what a teepee looks like?
I do. So a teepee looks like a teepee tent, where basically you'll take 3 pieces of firewood and just arrange it so that they lean to each other and make a little tent structure like this.
So this is a teepee fire, and as you can see, it has a lot of height to it, and this means this fire is great for heat because we actually can access all surface area of all pieces of wood, and we have the height to the fire. So when you're building a fire for heat, this is the best structure you want to go for, as well as if you're building a signal fire, this is great because you can build them really huge without taking a lot of wood up, and you can layer the outside with green leaves. And the reason you could use green leaves only for a signal fire is they create a lot of black smoke, so that plane will definitely see you if you're in a survival situation and need to be seen. So that's our first structure. It's a teepee. Again, good for heat. Our second structure we use here at Sparrow is called a log cabin. So what you're going to do for this is you're going to take 2 pieces of firewood like so and lie them parallel to each other. Then you're going to take 2 more pieces of firewood and lie them the opposite way on top. And as you can see, we got this crisscross pattern starting to form. Then you can take more firewood and keep building it up so you have this house structure now. And this is what we call our log cabin. And the reason that it's built like this is so that oxygen can enter through all these little windows. And this fire is fantastic for cooking. And the reason it's good for cooking is because you can place your pot directly on top of it or on any floor side, so you can boil as much water as you need.
Hey Cashel, where do you put this in your
Yeah, so for this fire, what you're gonna actually want to do is build either a roof with the kindling, but not too big. You're gonna space it out so oxygen can still go in. Or what you can do is build a little teepee with the kindling inside of the fire. So this is like a combined method of those two structures. It works great because now you got this heat to let the fire climb up all the way to the top pieces of wood, so you don't just have the bottom burning. But it's okay if you do have only the bottom burning at first, because heat rises and therefore fire climbs up, so it'll eventually get to the top. With this, you could also just stick the kindling in through the sides or any windows you see, but remember to leave enough room for oxygen to get in. Also, what you're going to want to do is stuff the middle with your tinder. And that's like insulating it, and it's gonna light really quick and get every piece of wood in on the action. So that's two types of structures that we use here at Sparrow. We have a third one, and this is one that we like to use on trip when it's really windy out. And that's, we're gonna take a huge piece of, I have one here, Daniel, don't worry. I have a huge piece of firewood here that I can't cut up, and I don't know what to do with it because it's massive and it's the only wood I have, but I need it to burn. So what I'm going to do is place it on one end of my fire pit like this. I'm going to take some smaller firewood if I have it and lean it against like this. Now obviously I would do a lot more, but I still want to show you guys this. And then I can take my kindling and also lean it up on the wood like this. Like so. I can take some small twigs that I might want to use for tinder and lean it up. And then I'm going to stuff the middle under here. You can see where my hand is. I'm going to stuff that with some tinder and some kindling, and that's what's going to light. And the reason that I'm doing this is this big log, either I can't cut it or I need it to block the wind to keep my fire going. So that's what we use for this, and this fire is called a lean-to structure. Now, as you can see, the structure is very important into how much oxygen can get to the fire. Also, one more thing I just wanted to talk about is when dealing with wood, the type of wood really matters, and it really affects the status and how well your fire is going to burn. So here at Sparrow, we have a lot of pine trees, so we have a lot of pine, and that's very hard wood. And hardwood is going to light, it's going to be harder to light. So that's easy to remember. Hardwood, harder to light. It takes a lot of heat, but your fire is going to be very hot once it starts going. If you want to start your fire with something softer, like birch is a nice mix between soft and hardwood, and that's going to light much easier, but it's going to burn faster, and it's not going to burn quite as hot. So if you're using your fire for certain bushcraft that you need a lot of heat for, make sure you have a lot of hardwood around you. You could always start your fire with birch and move into pine in the long run, and that's going to be great, and you're going to have your fire going for a very long time. As well as with tinder and kindling, it's very important to remember where we are going to collect this from. So what we want to remember are the 3 Ds: dead, down, and dry. So you're not going to pull alive trees off, you're going to want them to be dead. You only want dead leaves because anything with water in it is going to create a lot of smoke, so nothing green. So that's dead. Down, we're not going to take anything off of the trees, we're going to only pick up from the ground because we do not want to hurt the environment around us. We want to live a sustainable camping life, and in order to do that we need to take what has been given to us already by the earth, which is what's on the ground. Dead, down, and dry. So the last one is dry. If it's raining out, we're going to search for dry wood if we can. Nothing wet is going to catch very easily. There are ways to dry it off in camping, but it's just going to create a bigger headache for you in the future. So try and find as much dry wood as you can. I'm not going to go down right to the water and get pine needles because I know those ones are most likely going to be wet. I know the ones that are right here under these big trees are going to be dry because the trees are keeping them dry from the rain. And so those are 2 things that we need to start a fire. We got our fuel and we got our oxygen. Now, do you remember what the third thing is?
Well, yeah, the fire needs somewhere to ignite from.
Yeah, so we need somewhere to get the fire from. Often when we think of ways to get fire, we think of heat. And if you think of heat, you think of friction. So the very oldest way to start a fire, rubbing two sticks together very hard. There's another bow method where you can do it a bit faster. You tie a string to it and your sticks will rub together faster, but we're not going to do that today because it takes a very long time. So what I am going to show you is another type. It also uses friction. It's called a flint and steel. So this right here is our flint part, and it's just like a special type of rock that you can find in nature. And this is our steel. It's just it's a regular piece of metal with a serrated part, and that's just so it can strike easier. Serrated just like a butter knife. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take this alongside your index finger and hold it there with your thumb. You're gonna take your steel in your non-dominant hand, and that's just because, sorry, you're gonna take your flint in your non-dominant hand. And that's just because you'll be able to get more pressure with your dominant hand on the steel. You're gonna point the flint down and away from you, nowhere near your face.
Why can't I strike it at my face?
If you strike it at your face, Daniel, the sparks are gonna go towards you, and it might be hot on your face and you might burn yourself, or you can actually catch your hair on fire because your hair does work as a form of tinder.
That doesn't sound very fun at all.
No, it's not very fun, and it smells very bad, so I do not recommend using your hair as tinder. So then what we're gonna do, we're gonna point it down and away from us, and I'm going to strike hard in a pattern. And you see those sparks flying? That's what's gonna start our fire. So actually, me just holding it here in the middle of the air isn't doing anything because the sparks don't have anything to land on. Create a bird's nest of tinder, a bunch of dry leaves and a bunch of pine needles. You can also add toilet paper or some forms of cardboard with no glue or ink on it into the mix. You're gonna point it down and strike towards it. Obviously, because I'm not in a regulated fire pit, I'm not going to do it right now, but just letting you know, that's how you're going to get those sparks to create a fire. Now, very similar to the flint and steel is matches and a lighter. And I say these are similar because they also use that form of friction. Now, I have a question for you, Daniel. Matches or a lighter? What do you think was invented first?
Well, lighters look pretty complicated with all the parts, so I think matches would be first.
You would think, right? Because matches do just look like a simple stick with maybe some chemicals on the end. But the lighter was actually invented first, and that's because this little circular mechanism right in here is your flint and steel. You are just, when you flick a lighter, those sparks are the flint and the steel rubbing together. And then this button here that you're pressing is releasing the gas, the lighter fluid inside, and that's what's making it catch. So that's its own fuel. And the ignition is the flint and steel. So when you flick it together and hold down that button, you actually create a flame. You can notice I'm also holding this away from me, not near myself, and I'm not sticking my fingers into the flame. I have it very far behind here to show you the flame, but I'm nowhere near it, so I can't feel the heat. And that's how you use a lighter to catch things. In order to light your fire though, you're not gonna stick your hand under the structure with the lighter. What you should be doing is getting a piece of cardboard or paper, maybe a small stick that you can light like this, and then hold it in the fire. But if you don't have sticks small enough, you can take a piece of toilet paper, hold it a few times maybe, and then twist it. And when you twist it, what you're actually doing is complicating the surface area so that it's gonna take longer to burn before it gets to your fingers. And so I can actually light this end of it and stick it in the fire before 3 seconds, the regular tinder burning time, so I don't burn my own hand. So we've gone through our lighter and we've gone through our flint and steel. Those two methods both have flint and steel. The lighter is just more complicated in a combined little casing. But then we do have our matches. So I have two types of matches here today. We have regular matches, which are just a light pink, sorry about that, which is just like a light pink end to it. And then I have this other type of match with a dark red end of it, and that's because it's waterproof. So it's dipped either in like a wax or a sealing mechanism, because once matches get wet, you can't use them anymore. So with a match, you have this friction strip right here on the side of the box, and you have this chemical compound mixture of sulfur and other chemicals on the end of the match. So what you're gonna do is hold very far away from that chemical mixture at the end of it. You're gonna put the head of the match to the friction strip, and again, you're going to strike down and away from you. And that's because sometimes the head of the match can fly off when it's on fire. And if I'm going towards me, I can catch myself on fire.
Getting caught on fire doesn't sound like a good time, Cashel.
No, it's really not the goal of the activity today, Daniel. So here, I'm gonna start at the end of the friction strip and I'm gonna go away from me. And as you can see, I got it, but this one blew out right away because it's quite windy today. Would you like to give it a go, Daniel?
I would.
All right, show me all the safety steps that you've learned today.
So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to keep the match away from you. You're going to want to keep your fingers away from the head of the match. You're going to point the stick down, and then you're going to go ahead and give it a flick. What's going on here?
I don't know.
Oh, there we go.
But you see, even as he got frustrated, he went to pull it close to him, but he still kept it away and down because he knows the safety rules here at Sparrow. We're gonna blow out that match right away and just put it to the side. We'll dispose of it later. So we've gone through our ignition, our oxygen, and our fuel. We've gone through our types of fuel, which is tinder, kindling, and firewood. We've gone through many types of ignition, and we've also gone through our different fire structures. So if you are missing some Sparrow-like campfires, what you guys can do is follow us on social medias, and we'll post our times for when we're actually having them. I believe we have them roughly every other week, but if you follow us on social media, you'll definitely know those complete time frames. I hope you enjoyed joining us today. If you have any questions, please message us on social media and we'll try and get back to you. If you have any other activities you want to see, we'll try and get back to you and see what we can do in the future. That's all I have for today. Daniel, do you have anything?
Can we start the fire?
We can definitely start the fire, but let's say goodbye to our friends first.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.